Time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom. This is a show where we wake up with a Saturday morning sun, pop down on the living room floor of the big bowl of sugary cereal, and watch all your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
I'm Chris.
And with us today, we have Austin from the Inner Gamer Podcast.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Thanks for having me here. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. We love having you on our shows. You were on Nerds on Tap previously with pretty much the whole crew.
Right. It was a full
it was almost
room.
your whole show. It was like a takeover.
It was.
Yeah, there were more of them than there were of us.
Inadvertently,
It's
we
true.
apologize. I hope we didn't cause too much trouble. But we got pretty wasted.
For Nerds on Tap, you caused just the right amount of trouble.
Perfect.
Exactly.
That's what we're here for.
So why don't you tell people a little bit about Inner Gamer for anyone who doesn't know?
All right. So the Inner Gamer is also a podcast that we have. It's about video games. We have it every Tuesday on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher if you have Android. So yeah, we cover all your video games, news, reviews, opinions, and discussions. We try to cover all the latest video games, all the indie games, try to keep up with all the latest news. So for those who are casual gamers and don't want to spend the time looking up all the stuff, we do it for you.
Oh,
There it is.
Nice.
That's very sweet.
Very sweet
You're
of
doing
you.
a public service.
There it is. Yeah.
It's very
Except
nice.
for indie games. That's something that someone's going to have to come in and give a little coverage on.
Maybe
person
someone
might
on
be
this-
me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that'd be awesome.
Joseph's like, hint.
Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, elbow, elbow. So this morning, we watched The Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's staying in. That's going to be the music.
Ding, 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 ding. I know by heart. Sorry, guys.
Nice.
Oh, wait.
I can send it.
How's it start? It's like
Air. Oh yeah.
fire, earth, water,
heart.
something like that.
With our powers
Heart.
combined, we are Captain Planet.
Avatar. Oh,
I was gonna go hard
Planet.
at the cards.
Heart of the cards. Yeah. Then
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Then going to Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's time to do. Oh,
Good show.
we went way
Yeah,
off
what?
track there.
All right. So
Yes,
back
we
to
did.
Legend of
What
Korra.
did we watch? Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah.
No. So Legend of Korra aired from 2012 to 2014, created by the same creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender and the new Voltron that we watched earlier as well. Michael
Yes.
Dante DiMartino and Brian Conietzo. Produced by Nickelodeon Animation Studio, Ginormous Madman, Studio Mir, and Studio Piero. It ran for 4 seasons, 52 episodes on the Nickelodeon Network. For a short synopsis, Avatar Korra fights to keep Republic City safe from the evil forces of both the physical and spiritual worlds. So, Austin,
Dun,
why
dun,
did you bring this
dun.
show to us?
Because it's freaking amazing.
Good answer.
I mean, hands down, one of the best cartoon series I've watched to date. Like when I watch the show, my inner kid is like screaming inside of me with like giddiness and joy. But at the same time, the show takes it to another level of like, this can be an adult show. There's a lot of adult themes scattered throughout, not only this first season that we're going to talk about, but through all the other seasons. So it's cool to know that coming from The Last Airbender, they've kind of evolved it and not being just specific for kids, even though The Last Airbender actually, most of the fans were adults.
yeah?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I could
that is
see-
true.
I see exactly what you mean just by watching the 3 episodes we watched for today's show. It was, there were a lot of punches pulled on parts that would have been kind of sensitive for kids, but at the
Right.
same time, they didn't sacrifice. You got the impression of, as an adult, like it doesn't go over your head. You know
Yeah.
what happened, even if they say it in a calm, or I guess a more peaceful way, or more, not PC, but more kid friendly way.
Right. They do it more comedically here
Exactly.
and there. And yeah, I mean, I think some of the imagery lends to that too, the
Es-
way they.
Especially
Right.
in the last episode, which we'll talk about. But man, there's some really strong moments where it's like, oh my God, they did that? Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
So, Chris, who are the stars of this show?
There is a lot. There's a lot. So brace yourself. So the voice of Korra was Janet Varney, who is mostly known for television work like You're the Worst and Stand Against Evil. The voice of Shiro, who you might not think of who that is, but that is the radio broadcaster / narrator you hear at the beginning of every episode. And that is Jeff Bennett, which we just talked about him from the show Shaolin Showdown when we did that one.
Oh, nice.
He's been in a few other shows that we've done, so he keeps popping up lately. Naga, the dog bear, which is awesome, has noises made by D. Bradley Baker, who also voices Perry from Phineas and Ferb. He is also the voice of the clones from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. He's also in Adventure Time, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Uncle Grandpa, a whole bunch more stuff. The voice of Bolin was voiced by PJ Byrne, and he's mostly known for several TV series such as Intelligence, The Game, and Vinyl. The voice of Mako was David Faustino, known for voicing the character Dagger on Dragons, Riders of the Burke, and Dragons.
Is that the guy from Married with Children?
I don't know.
Bud Bundy? That's not...
I don't think
so.
so.
Maybe I'm wrong. Go on. I'll look it up.
So.
I'll look it up.
Bud Bundy, I don't think so.
And Dragons Race to the Edge. These are two cartoon shows that were based off of How to Train Your Dragon. The voice of Tenzin was J.K. Simmons from the Spider-Man trilogy, where he was J. Jonah Jameson. Also voices that character in pretty much anything Marvel as far as like cartoons. He was in Juno and all of the Farmers Insurance commercials. He does voices in Gravity Falls, BoJack Horseman, and he's going to be playing Commissioner Gordon in the upcoming Batman movie.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, that is Bud Bundy.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, Bud Bundy.
David Faustino.
He's Mako? Okay, that just blew my mind.
That's awesome.
So he's also Bud Bundy. The voice of Asami is Seychelle Gabriel, who plays the character Lourdes Delgado from the TV show Falling Skies. The character Lin Beifong was voiced by Mindy Sterling, who's known for her roles in Austin Powers, Chowder, Desperate Housewives, iCarly, and Con Man, which Con Man is super awesome. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It's hilarious. Milo, voiced by Logan Wells. This is the only thing he's done because he actually is a kid. Janora was voiced by Kiernan Shipka, who is Sally Draper in Mad Men. And Iki was Darcy Rose Burns, who is Penny from Desperate Housewives and voices Princess Amber in Sophia the First. Also, just because this is really awesome, I'm going to list off several guest stars that they have had voice characters on the show because it's impressive. So we have James Remar, Henry Rollins, Steve Blum, which is a lot in this season, Aubrey Plaza, Zelda Williams, Gray Griffin, who was the voice of Azula from Avatar The Last Airbender, Maurice LaMarche, Eva Marie Saint, Jim Cummings, Stephen Yoon, Tom Kinney, Rami Malek, Nolan North, Clancy Brown, Gary Cole, Kevin Michael Richardson, Pat Fraley, Serena Williams, and Chris Hardwick, who voiced the adult Sokka in a couple episodes.
Oh, nice.
Which is super cool. Yeah. See, what a good pick to voice adult Sokka. That's crazy.
You said Steve Bloom also?
Yes.
Cowboy
He is
Bebop?
the voice. Yes, he is actually the voice of a major character from this season.
Excellent. Yeah, point it out when we get
He's
there.
Amon.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's right.
Steve Bloom.
Why was I
He's
like
the voice of
where is he?
Amon.
Yeah,
Insanity.
I actually got to meet him at the Dallas Fan Expo.
Oh,
I was just like, he's Amon.
Is he an awesome? Is he an awesome guy in real life? Because I feel like he'd be an awesome guy.
The coolest guy ever. Like you walk up to him, he has a smile. He's like, "What can I do for you, man?" We're like, "We just need you to record something for us. Thank you, sir."
I feel like voice actors, for the most part, would be the happiest people on earth.
They always seem genuinely really happy.
From previous experiences, that's how it's been.
Well,
I've not met one with a chip on their shoulder yet.
Right.
Yeah.
They're well known, but they can walk out in public and not be hounded
Exactly.
by people.
They don't have to be hassled unless they're at a convention. Then people are like, do the voice.
Yeah.
And that's me screaming
exactly.
that.
Yep.
Any other guest stars?
There's many others, but
Oh, right.
I felt that would be like a long enough list.
That was a good sampling of them. Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
There's so many. It was such a obviously this was a huge undertaking to draw like that big of a crowd of guest stars to come on. So
right. And Bud Bundy.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Honestly, I didn't
And Bud
realize
Bundy.
how big, how like well known this cast was.
Yeah, that's
it's
insane.
crazy.
So, for a few tasty marshmallows from our big bowl of Legend of Korra cereal, Each element has its own special ability. For example, air has flying, fire has lightning bending and combustion bending, earth has metal bending and lava bending, and water has blood bending. Secondly, Aang and Katara have 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. They named their waterbending daughter after Katara's mother, Kaya, and one of their sons after the king of Omashu, Bumi.
Yeah, I remember Boomy.
Also, during the 3rd season, Nickelodeon forced the show onto Nick.com. They also gave a limited budget during the 4th season. This is an explanation why they made a clip show a little bit before the show ended. So they were kind of pulling back on it, not giving them as much money to move forward with, which is crazy because from my understanding, I mean, I didn't watch it at the time, but my understanding was this was always a pretty popular show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
most part, it was. I don't think it got as much, it wasn't received as well as they hoped it would be for season 1 of Korra. And I think because of the budget cuts and what was happening, you could tell that the main creators, Michael and Brian, just kind of started letting Nickelodeon take it. And so season 2, season 3, season 4, like all those like had other directors involved.
Okay.
And so you could see it was just kind of tanking. And they want to move on to other stuff too, like, Voltron.
Yeah, of course.
Now.
Well, I'm glad they did.
Yeah, me too.
And lastly, Rob Paulsen was originally cast to voice Aang, but was replaced by D.B. Sweeney during post-production. In fact, Paulsen had already recorded the lines.
Why did they replace him? That seems weird.
Why would you pull back on Rob Paulsen if you have that as one of your voices? It seems like he would have at least been a guest star of some sort, but I didn't hear his name in your list.
No, I didn't see him on there, honestly.
Interesting.
I wonder if maybe they, just thinking about his voice, I wonder if maybe they didn't think Aang sounded like adult enough with Rob Paulsen voicing him or something.
Maybe.
Like maybe they want him to sound, because when Aang does show up in this show, he's very serious because he's much older. It's not little kid Aang from The Last Airbender. This is like, seasoned Avatar Aang who's like, looks like he's in his 40s or something when we do see him.
Yeah, he's got his goatee and everything.
The spirit of him, at least. So.
Or his beard. Yeah.
Yeah. That's weird seeing like Aang with like a little chin goatee.
Yeah, exactly.
This is that cute kid. Now he's an adult, but he has this very distinct voice about him in his older age. And I really like it.
Nice.
I like it.
I did too. I think they did good.
Yeah, so you guys already have pretty good memories of this show, I assume. You've both seen it. Were you watching it at the time that it came out, or what?
Oh yeah. Oh, I was all about this show. Like I was waiting every, I guess it was every Sunday because it would air on TV and then it would come out on the online. So I was like, I gotta wait because I didn't have cable or anything.
Oh, okay.
So I'd wait and I'd pull it up and have to watch like 5 minutes of commercials between each break. And I'm like, dang it, internet.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I was just buying at the teeth just to watch the show.
Yeah.
I came at it a little bit later. I think Korra was in season 2 when I actually got around to watching The Last Airbender. So because like a while back, I had tried to watch a couple episodes of The Last Airbender and I didn't really get into it. I think because I wasn't really paying that much attention, but I was like, this is for kids. But people kept telling me how good it is. So I'm like, all right, I must be missing something. So then like a few episodes in, I was hooked and watched all of Last Airbender really fast and then got into Korra. And I got through season 1 and 2 because they were out. And then I got season 3 and watched it later, but I have not watched season 4 yet. But luckily, it came out on Blu-ray just a few weeks ago. So I had pre-ordered it. And so now I can finally finish it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I didn't even, I knew the show existed because obviously it was everywhere when it first came out. But since I hadn't watched Last Airbender at the time, I was like, well, I don't want to get into that because I don't know about the predecessor to it. And then I didn't want to go back to that either because I was like, I don't have time. And so it was excuse after excuse to not watch it. But now that I have had a little sampling of both of them, I realize what all the hype was about now. I get it. Totally worth catching up on.
You pretty much have to watch it.
Well, now, yeah. I pretty much have to,
and
right?
You know what? Like, I don't know this for sure, but I think that Legend of Korra has the first same-sex couple in a children's cartoon.
I did see something about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very, I remember when the rumors were coming out and I was like, no, they can't do that.
And it being, one of the main characters.
Yeah.
Couple of the main characters. Yeah. So I don't want to spoil it, but yeah.
Yeah, don't spoil it because I don't remember who it was.
It's
now
cool,
that I
though.
know who the characters are, that'll spoil it for me. So let me get there. I'll get there.
You'll get there.
All right. So So let's go ahead and jump into the 3 episodes we watched for today's show. And these were, I mean, we watched the first episode, yes, but I think the other 2 were Austin's picks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's atypical to how we usually do it, which is highest rated and a listener pick. So because Austin's our guest today, he chose both of them. He had them ready for us. So we're like, all right, well, we're going to go with that.
Yep.
And this was a great sampling. And it actually, they kind of led from one to the other pretty well. So I wasn't too lost coming into it like I am with some shows.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I picked these because I feel like, well, even for the fans, but even for, someone coming in, like these are huge plot turning points for the main character.
I could definitely agree to that.
And like, if you're going to watch any of these episodes, but they're all really good and they all tie together so well. And I feel like even watching one of these, you want to go back and, see what you missed. What
was interesting is if I hadn't seen the second episode we watched, which was episode 8, and before I saw episode 12, I wouldn't have understood one of the major plot points that happened in 12, which I'll get to, but that's why I say they jumped very well and connected very well to each other. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the first episode we watched for today's show. Welcome to Republic City, season 1, episode 1, where Korra, the new avatar, travels to Republic City to start her airbending training. Yes, kind of, but
there's much more to it than that.
Yeah, exactly. Not because that was planned at all. She kind of forced herself there.
So there's 2 things about this first episode that I absolutely love. One is that, they discovered Korra was the next avatar when she was still like an infant, and how like confident she already was, because it was like immediately she could already do fire, earth, and water bending like so fast. And she's just a little kid. And I mean, it took Aang so long to like learn all the others aside from air, which was his native one. Like just as a little kid, she already had it down.
Yeah, she was a prodigy. And even
exactly.
When the White Lotus people came over they were kind of scouting for avatars, I guess, or the next avatar. They came to her house and they were like, okay, talking to her parents, why do you think she for sure that she's the next avatar? And then she just kind of busts through the wall like the Kool-Aid man. And she's like, I'm the avatar and you got to deal with it. And she's just like shooting fire and water everywhere. Like, okay, so this kid's got something. She just needs to learn to control it.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I love that. I love that that we're not going into like it's not a similar story to Airbender where she's got to learn each of the things. She's already, as a kid, mastered 3 of them.
Right.
So I thought that's cool. And they put a lot more emphasis on like, so she doesn't know air and she has no connection to the spiritual side. So she can't go into like the avatar state or anything. Like that was something that Aang, I mean, he kind of learned to do, but it was like it happened for him much easier, and it seemed to happen frequently for him. Whereas for her, like she had no connection to the spiritual side at all.
Yeah, she was just very focused on the physical side, and she just kept saying like, like I can do this. Like basically, she's just the tough kid who's like, what else do I need to learn? Like I can already beat everybody, so.
Right, exactly.
Who cares about the spiritual side? It's not my thing.
The other thing that I absolutely love about this episode is we get to see Katara as like a super old lady. And I think that's so awesome that like we get to see one of the old characters from The Last Airbender, and she's not only all grown up, but I mean, she's like very, like grandmotherly towards Korra, which is... It's so interesting because, I mean, she had married Aang and fathered his children and stuff and now has grandchildren through them. And her husband, Aang, dies, which creates the next avatar, which is Korra. So it's really cool to see, like, the relationship that she has with Korra, like, kind of as a grandmother when it's, it's almost like part of the spirit of her husband, is part of Korra basically. So just that relationship is very cool. And I really, really like it.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And not having seen a lot of Last Airbender, I was trying to remember who that was. I mean, they said her name and then I was like, okay, now I know. But before that, I was just like, a random old lady. Great. But and
then when they say Katara, you're like, oh my god!
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, who is Katara again? Because there's so many names to remember.
Oh yeah,
and it's a very big world for as I guess as small as these cartoons were.
It is a big world.
I mean, they only ran for like a few seasons each, and just there was so much developed that it was like, man, if you are behind, you are way behind. But that doesn't take away from the enjoyment of it.
And that's a great thing about these writers. It's like they know they've put so much time into fulfilling, like fully developing this world.
Yeah, world
And
building.
you don't get that very often. And we talk about this in our podcast about video games and how the world is kind of paper thin. It's only big enough for you to play in, it's not big enough for you to expand in. And this is why this show touches my heart so much, is like your imagination runs wild, even though there are boundaries from what they develop, but like anything is almost possible. And as a kid, I mean, that is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what, I mean, like we had just talked about, she has already mastered, basically not mastered, but she's already pretty professional at, fire, water, and earth, but she hasn't learned air yet. And so what is supposed to happen is Tenzin, who is Aang's son and the head airbender at this point, is supposed to come and stay with the where are they right now? They're in South America, or not South America, they're in the South Pole, but I can't remember what is it. What's the city called?
It's just like a training facility where the White Lotus go.
Okay, so the White Lotus facility. Then Tenzin's supposed to come and stay with them and train her in the process. But there's a lot going down in Republic City where he's one of the heads and the head council members. So he's like, I can only stay here for a night, but then we've got to go straight there. Like it's just like a pit stop on the way there. And basically, so she's throwing a fit over it because she's so hot-headed and she wants to master all of this. And she's like, why can't you stay? Why can't you stay? And it's like, well, if you can't stay, can I just go with? And the city's in turmoil. So he's like, no, like not right now. And she eventually, as kind of predictably at that point, sneaks aboard the ship and makes her own way there because she's going to make this happen regardless. But that's not before almost being stopped by Katara, who is just like, kind of letting a baby bird fly. It's like you just have to let it loose. And this was her, even though it was a rebellious thing in spirit, it's like this needs to happen to bring in the new generation of avatars.
Well, I think she's looking at it. It's like, this is Aang,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
This is exactly what Aang would do.
Perfect in that way.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, it brings, well, I mean, if you're a fan of the old seasons, like it just, I don't know, full circle here,
Absolutely.
It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Hits the feels.
Oh yeah. Super hard. Yeah. I was watching this with my girlfriend and I made sure, this is before I knew Legend of Korra was coming out, but we spent like 3 months just hammering through the 3 seasons of The Legend or The Last Airbender, and when this came up and we saw Katara, we're like, oh my god. She's holding me, I'm holding her.
Tears were shed.
Tears everywhere.
It's like seeing a lost family member.
So then they get to go to Republic City, and I love Republic City. It's so cool. Like, so this world, it's so interesting because whereas Last Airbender was very much felt like kind of ancient Middle East, that kind of feel. This, it's been like, I don't know, 70 something years. And now it's almost like steampunkish in a way. Like there's industry, there's like companies and corporations, there's buildings.
Cabbage Corp.
There's Cabbage Corp. Yeah, my cabbages. There's like blimps and stuff like that.
It's very
there
much,
are cars, electric cars,
or it's the it's like the coal age. Is that right?
Coal? I have no idea, man.
Maybe it
reminds the Iron Age in America. That
the Cabbage Age.
It reminds me a little bit of like Final Fantasy games setting wise.
Yeah, It does have that feel, and it's really like it's almost like a mix of what Airbender was. But you mix it with like the roaring 20s of the United States.
Right.
There's like jazz music and there's cars and there's gangsters. And it's just, man, it's so cool. It was such a cool way to like add on to this universe.
But Korra comes in ready to not show off, but ready to defend, ready to be the hero of the city. And she sees these 3 gangsters, I guess a triple threat triad, robbing essentially robbing this guy, like, pay your dues to us. He doesn't have them, so they're going to put him in a hospital or something. And so she comes to his rescue, which is a noble act, but she like breaks so much of the stores around the city and some of the streets in the process. So in doing so, she's almost caused more harm than they would have. And so it's her having to, at this point at least, having to learn to a little bit of self-control, and B, the city is not like the wild. Like, it's not, there is an amount of control that you have to have in order to basically stay out of prison or,
Right.
you know, keep the peace.
That that just like mirror of like where she's coming from, where she is now. It's I don't know, the way that they put that together, like her awakening to that is just so priceless.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And it happens a couple times. We see
Yeah.
something similar where, you know, especially earth bending, like it's very destructive of the environment. It's in a city, so you have to be very careful. And metal bending, it's the same thing. It's like, come on, you're just pulling like pillars and scaffoldings from everywhere.
Right.
And it seems very dangerous to have in a city.
Well, it was cool when that happened because then the police force show up and they're all metal benders and they're headed by Lin Beifong, who is the daughter of Toph from Last Airbender. So that's really awesome. And like the way that this character was written, you're like, yeah, this is definitely Toph's kid because she's very sarcastic, very abrasive. It's just perfect, man. They did such a good job.
I don't even remember who Toth is, but I believe it.
She was the young blind girl from Last Airbender that was always barefoot. Remember, like in that last episode we watched, she invented metal bending, and remember she was like ripping apart the Fire Nation blimps with her bare hands.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that was Toph. So
All right,
Lin
that makes
Beifong
sense.
is her daughter.
Yeah, I heard her.
Yeah.
I heard them talking about it, but I was like, oh, I can't remember who that character is.
Yeah.
Someone will remind me, and this is what happened.
Yeah.
So so in doing so, you know, she is captured by those police with their metal bending. Korra is, and so she's taken to Lin Beifong or Chief Beifong, and so Tenzin has to come to her rescue and say, like, you know, I'll pay the fines, whatever, just drop the charges. But in doing so, Korra has to go back to the South Pole, or that's the idea at that point. And so she is basically getting ready to head out when Tenzin's kids almost kind of remind him of how she's needed here. And they allow her, or he allows her to stay. He's basically like, okay, you know, your training will pursue here because the city needs an avatar, especially, you know, now more than ever.
Well, it's interesting because his whole thing was he thought that he was preserving his father's legacy by concentrating on Republic City because Aang really was the founder of Republic City. But the city had slowly morphed into something else. And then it was just in that moment that Tenzin kind of realized that by trying to preserve what the city is right now is not what his father would have intended. So his real way of preserving Aang's legacy is teaching Korra instead of preserving the city.
And what isn't shown here is Tenzin's like past with his father and his like doubts of himself, which is explored in season 3, which really, like, once you watch that and you come back here, you see a lot of Tenzin himself like opens up to you in a whole new way. And it's so breathtaking.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. You totally understand why he seems really hard on Korra sometimes. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the idea of Republic City is to kind of have a peaceful union between the benders and the non-benders. And because there was a kind of a, not a rivalry between them necessarily, but they were worlds apart. And so the idea is to bring them together and for everyone to live peacefully. But that is starting to, you know, this is where we see that beginning where it's starting to fall apart. And led by this mysterious figure in a mask, we see at the end of this episode, Amon, who at this point, we don't know who it is, but his plan is accelerated because Avatar is here to stay.
He is the head of an underground anti-bending group called the Equalists, who believe that, well, basically to level the playing field, there should be no benders. So he believes in basically like purifying the human race by eliminating benders, or more to that effect, more bending than actually eliminating the benders themselves.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't kind of got it already from what we've been talking, you know, Korra's such a hothead. Like she's ready to barrel through
really is.
Any obstacle that comes in her path. And ultimately this is her downfall. But I think we all can relate to that aspect in Korra. It's like, you know, there's an obstacle. We want to take it over. Especially her being a girl, which is, you know, complete opposite take of Aang. You know, she is literally the opposite of Aang. She's not only a girl, but she's super hot-headed, super strong, ready to barrel through. While Aang, you know, kind of took his time, stood back, and mapped out his foe.
It was interesting because Aang's one of his biggest flaws was probably how naive he was, whereas Korra's biggest flaw is how hot-headed she is. So yeah, it's definitely like kind of polar opposites because he was so peaceful. He didn't want to hurt anyone. Korra is like, if you get in my way, I'm going to hurt you a lot. So yeah, it's awesome.
She approaches things more through intimidation than I guess peaceful negotiation more often than not.
That's all she knows, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is the aspect of not knowing how to bend air yet. Like,
right.
Once she gets that, like, everything changes.
So let's go ahead and jump into the second episode we watched for today's show, which was When Extremes Meet, Season 1, Episode 8, chosen by Austin, of course, where Korra faces off with Councilman Tarlok as equalist activity continues to rise in Republic City.
Yes, that does happen.
Yes.
I guess the big thing here that Joseph probably was confused about at first is there's a lot more characters when you get into this episode. It's because a lot of them were introduced in episode 2, but we didn't watch that one. But Mako, Bolin, and Asami are now part of, like, basically they're Korra's entourage. And
Team
Mako
Avatar.
being, they're a team Avatar. Mako being a firebender, his brother Bolin is an earthbender, and Asami is just a normal human. She's a non-bender. But her father was like this huge, like Rockefeller type master industrialist and has all this tech. And he developed the cars and the blimps and all of the technology that Republic City has. So she kind of came from a life of privilege, but she's still very grounded and very, she's a good person. And before this episode, they had found out that her father had been funding the Equalists. So this kind of battle had ensued, and we're kind of seeing the aftermath of that now, where they're kind of he's like on the run, and Asami is now like homeless and got nowhere to go. So they all move in with Tenzin's family, and that's pretty much where this begins.
Yeah, I didn't know who any of those people were, but I got explained to me kind of steadily throughout the episode. Right. I did know, at least coming into it, that Asami and Mako had kind of a thing. And then there was that little girl, one of...
Iki?
Yeah. She
totally just sells Korra out so fast.
It's so awesome.
Did you know that Korra likes Mako? And then the effect or the cut that it went
So
to
anime.
with Korra, where, that's very anime, where it's just like fumes coming out of her head, just like lightning, all these different things happening around her. Around Korra, just because she's so like embarrassed
lion
by
growl.
that.
It's just literally for an instant, but it just, I don't know, it's just that stamp of traditional anime that just touches home for me. I don't know about you guys.
That's a great thing about the combination between anime and cartoon culture. When people successfully do it, is they'll bring in some of the best parts of that. It happens in Voltron a lot too, where it'll do that weird cut where they get the big eyes and stuff, and like the thing above their head, and like sweat marks, and it's like those are, even though it's like over the top expressive, it's fun, and I always enjoyed that aspect of anime anyway.
This was like a case where like American creators like succeeded in paying homage to Japanese anime.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so,
which doesn't happen often.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So this is, when those three come to stay, and we see that the police department are reporting to Tarlok, who is, I don't know a lot about him because this is my first time seeing him, but he's essentially supposed to be like some sort of control device or person in control who is supposedly regulating the Equalist and keeping them at bay while everything else goes on normally with the government.
Yeah, nobody knows that Tarlok has anything to do with the Equalist. He's basically kind of a double agent in that way.
I thought he was Amon the whole time. Like at this
I
point,
did too,
I'm like,
for a long
he's
time.
so Amon. He's coming up for the Equalist. Like it's so, cutthroat. Like if you don't see it, you're stupid type thing. And yeah.
And then later,
that's where I was
like,
at
oh,
this.
shit. That's
Yeah.
But you were really close in your guess.
Yeah, that was my assumption
as it's
too.
revealed.
Right.
But yeah, so Tarlok was another councilman whose status was elevated, and Chief Beifong stepped down because in a fight against Amon, she had her bending taken away because Amon found a way to strip benders of their skills, basically. So Beifong, I mean, she still could have led, but she was powerless, and she just felt unworthy from being taken down in that way. Like, it was just the biggest blow to her ego. So she completely stepped down. So there's a new chief, and the chief is in Tarlok's pocket. So basically, the Equalists basically have control of the city at this point.
And so Amon's like kind of toting around like he's this, divine being sent by the gods, that he is the one deemed to take out all of the benders in the world through his divine power. And I really like that, because you see that a lot. And I think a lot of people, you can kind of look at Hitler as that. He has that kind of speech to him, and people now, they try to pick up on stuff like that as well. But I thought that was a very critical dynamic that he needed to be. He's evil villain.
Right. He's got the big following because there are a lot of people who, even if they don't agree with the things he does, they agree with what his idea of equality is. So he's got a huge following behind him, and that makes him even more dangerous, is people following his ideals.
Right.
And what's really interesting is how he goes about his plan, because, well, it's interesting too, because he is a bender himself. But I mean, if you think
we don't
about
know
it,
that
he
at the
strips everyone
time, though.
else.
Right.
We don't know that until...
Spoiled.
Spoiler.
wears...
No, we don't know it.
He wears the robes of the Water Tribe, so you know he belongs to the Water Tribe.
Well, I didn't know until the third episode.
Tarlok, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I thought we were talking about Amon.
I thought you were talking about him.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, Tarlok,
so
we know Tarlok is a waterbender. Yeah, you guys were the spoilers.
Cut that out.
So what's really interesting is that Tarlok is a bender himself, but he's still helping the Equalist movement, because if everyone else is stripped from their bending except him, that makes him the most powerful, person out there. But what he does, instead of like straight up just supporting the Equalists, instead what he does is he manipulates both sides by fanning the flames, where he has non-benders rounded up and arrested and jailed for no real good reason, but it's because he knows that it's going to start a civil war. So that's what he does, is he goes against the people that he's actually supporting, just because he knows that it will ignite that spark and turn it into a fire.
Also stating that, or really putting a law forth that the other council members, aside from Tenzin, are all for, which is to make it illegal to join the Equalist, which sounds good in theory, but also putting a curfew on the non-airbenders.
Right. I mean, he's really spreading fear amongst not only the people, but the council members. And
and segregating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally how tyranny and oppression start, by fear.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like this episode really brings in a lot of like heavy subjects that you don't see in a lot of kids shows, and they do it so well. And I mean, I want to say obvious. It's not obvious, but it's a very real way that I wouldn't think someone would do it.
Yeah,
that way.
it's a good parallel to real life. And if you think about, I mean, going back to even 9/11, where it's like, this wasn't all Muslims who did this, but there was segregation across the board because of the few.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. What's really interesting here is, so Team Avatar has been fighting the Equalists. There's a couple really good scenes of some battles between them and Equalists, and that was like just some beautiful animation and like fight scenes animated there. But towards the end of this episode, we see them basically Korra fighting against the police force and Tarlok, which gets basically everybody arrested, except for Korra. He arrests her friends, to anger her even more.
And Korra's trying to protect, like, she comes into this, or the police are trying to, corral these people, saying that, since you're out past curfew, you're going to be, arrested. And they're like, well, we're just normal people, and we want our electricity turned back on because they turned it off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And Korra's like, hey, turn this back on. I'm the Avatar. I'm here to help these people. And that's what she really wants to do. But obviously things turn sour, and she stands up to Tarlok by pulling up 2 giant boulders ready to throw it at him when he has a whole police force behind her,
and this is a moment we get to see her learning that sometimes she needs to control her anger.
Right. I mean, we realize to see how weak she really is.
Yeah.
Even though she's the Avatar, she might as well just be a normal bender, because
for all her physical strength with their bending abilities, like she's not ready.
Right.
And we see at the end of this episode where she and Tarlok face off in his office. And that is a very cool fight.
Yeah, and that's where you find out that Tarlok isn't just a waterbender. He is a bloodbender.
You know what?
Illegal.
Before we even saw that part, when they got thrown out into the courthouse and there was no water around, and she exclaimed that, I was like, oh man, he's going to use, I didn't know about bloodbending at the time. I was like, he's going to use the water inside you or something because you said it.
Already knew.
Yeah, because you said it like that, something's about to happen. And then she starts like getting, he's controlling the blood inside of her, the water and blood inside of her. So she's just
crazy.
It controls their body and basically just like cripples them in such a way as it would.
Well,
but supposedly from what she's seeing, like this is only supposed to happen on a full moon.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Can we step back real fast back to the fight? So she actually comes to Tarlok and is like, hey, you need to release my friends because now it's just him and her on like level ground,
Mm-hmm.
She can firebend, she can earthbend, even though he has water in his chamber, that's all he can do. So she plans to literally hammer it out with him. And he calls her out and is like, hey, like, I like you because of how hot-headed you are, how determined you are to just go forward and barrel through anything.
Right, and taking what you want.
And he wants to work with her, but he's using her friends as, I guess, kind of bait in a way to get her to follow him. Obviously, the battle ensues, and she has the upper hand because she can control 3 elements. I mean, he only gets one.
Yeah.
And that's when he has been hiding his
ace in the hole.
Yeah, that he is a bloodbender. And for anyone who watched the other ones, when you see this episode, if you saw it, it was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it is
bloodbending
literally
is scary.
It's
like,
mind blowing.
God, it's like excruciating too. Like it just looks like that he could shatter her body anytime he wanted. It's really, really unnerving to watch. Like the way he makes her contort and stuff. It's just, it almost kind of makes you sick to your stomach a little bit. You're just like, oh God.
Yeah, you can see why it's very illegal.
I mean, imagine just not being able to control your body.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he throws her across the chamber room where the council members meet, and like with ease, and she is the Avatar. I mean, again, she's shown how weak she really is.
Yeah, she was not prepared for that. I mean, none of us were. I wasn't. I was surprised. Ugh.
There's two things, two moments from this episode that I thought are hilarious, and I just absolutely love, and I have to mention them, which is there's one part back on the island where Tenzin lives, where Korra's upset, and she kind of goes off into the distance, and the rest of Team Avatar joins her, and they're kind of giving her a pep talk, and they all like put their hands in. They're like, come on, we can do this. We'll stop the Equalists. And then Milo drops out of nowhere and just farts super loud. And he's like, yeah, that is so funny. And the other part what's that?
I was going to say, I think moments like that are what keep kids into it in those moments where it can get really, really intense and serious.
That kept me into it. I also really like it whenever, like, every once in a while, Tenzin gets his moment where it's kind of funny. And it happened in here, too, where the rest of the Team Avatar is arrested and Korra and Tenzin go to the police and they're basically demanding them be let loose. And the guy's basically like, no, you'll have to talk to Tarlok. And Korra's like, you're the worst chief of police ever. And then they start walking away and, like, Tenzin's like, calm down, Korra. But then turns back and he goes, but you really are the worst ever. Like, really loud.
Yeah. But you really are the worst police chief ever. Yeah.
That was so good.
Yeah, that was funny.
Good stuff.
And this kind of, what's great about this is it kind of leads, for me anyway, directly into the next episode. Even though it's 4 episodes later, it lines up perfectly with it. And the third episode we watched for today's show is Endgame, season 1, episode 12. It's actually the last episode of the first season. And this is where the duel between Amon and Korra takes place. Will Korra be powerful enough to beat Amon? Who knows? Barely.
It sounds like that's like the narrator. Will Korra ever be able to beat Amon?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I didn't think she was going to, honestly. Not as the way it
was looking pretty grim for a while.
Yeah.
One thing that I liked about this episode was we get to see General Iroh, which is the grandson of Zuko, named for the General Iroh from Last Airbender. So he's Iroh. He becomes a general of like the Fire Nation fleet. And he is actually voiced by the same voice actor that voiced Zuko from Last Airbender.
Nice.
Which is awesome. And he looks like Zuko.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
super touching.
Which one was he?
He was the guy that was he ended up getting captured with Bolin and Asami. They got captured together.
Oh, okay.
And then he has some awesome freaking fighting moves in this. Like they get loose, he gets in like an airplane and he's trying to take these other planes out and his gets shot down. So he jumps out and uses his firebending to basically rocket himself through the sky, and he like takes another plane down with his bare hands and his firebending. And then hops in another one, and oh my god, it was so cool! Like that dude is BA.
Yeah, like he learned how to fly with just his hands on fire. It was like, I don't understand.
So cool.
The action in this series, just in general, is amazing. The fight scenes are great.
Yeah, they come a long way from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and even that was amazing too.
Yeah.
Oh man, the last 4 episodes of Airbender are amazing. Like the best fight scenes like ever.
And actually, people from Japan and China are like impressed with this cartoon series, with The Last Airbender and Korra, because of the way they portray anime for America.
Yeah, it's good Western anime, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
even though they send it overseas to actually get all the animation done, but we directed it, right? That's all.
Semantics.
We were the crew. Yeah, it was created in America, produced in other places.
What does Apple say? Designed in California, made in China.
Right. Exactly.
So what we get to see is we get to see the equal is having a rally.
It's a rally.
Yeah, where Amon is talking about the reasons, basically giving the reasons why he is against the just bending in general, where a firebender supposedly killed his family and left him scarred. And at that point, Korra comes out and she's trying to, I guess along the way somewhere, they've learned that he is, or they assume, I guess, that he is Noatak, who is the brother of Tarlok, and that he is also, a waterbender / bloodbender. And then Amon takes his mask off, and we do see this scar, which settles the people down in the rally, because they're they're more inclined to believe Amon than they are at this point Korra, because no one trusts the trust for the Avatar, just benders in general, is at an all-time low. Yeah,
nobody really trusts her, and everybody sometimes I feel like it's not that they trust Amon, but that they want to trust Amon.
Yeah.
Because he speaks of them being on equal playing fields and stuff like that. And the non-benders feel oppressed by benders. That might not necessarily be the case, but they've created, basically Tarlok kind of created this, with his power and stuff like that, created this system where it made them feel oppressed and it made them flock to Amon. So it was just both sides of that coin working together, just created the perfect storm for Amon to get that much support. And he also captured Tenzin and his children, because those 4 are the only airbenders in existence. So if he removes their bending, there is no airbenders at all.
And that's his plan. And something that we learned that he's able to do, which from what it looks like, just putting his finger onto their head, and it's kind of severs their connection to the any of the elements. So, but like Korra and Mako step in and they start fighting Amon, and they're able to free Tenzin and his family, which I love, where Milo just raises his hands in the air. He's like, prison break! Yeah,
prison break!
That kid is so funny.
He's hilarious.
So like they're fleeing to safety while like Korra and Mako are basically taking on Amon, kind of like behind the scenes and stuff like that. And one thing that's very interesting here is Korra kind of starts getting the upper hand until Amon begins to bloodbend and freezes her and Mako, and they can't move. But what's interesting, and this is kind of what helped Korra in the long run here, is that one of Amon's lieutenants sees him bloodbending and realizes everything the Avatar said was true. And so he turns on Amon and he goes to attack him.
And Amon's to attack him.
Yeah.
A bloodbender. He's crazy.
Yeah. Amon kind of so he loses his focus against Mako and Korra and takes out his lieutenant, which gives them, I think it was Mako, gives him the opportunity to basically kind of electrocute him, doesn't kill him, but definitely throws him for a loop.
Yeah,
and,
that's seeing a
they
side
escape.
of a fire bending that I had not seen at this point, which was the
Right.
lightning bending, I guess.
So in the last
Oh, yeah,
Airbender, like you had to like charge up for it.
Mm.
But now,
Yeah.
like what you see early on in the episode is that Mako was working at a power plant, and all it is firebenders shooting electricity into like something that takes electricity and turns it into energy, just like power turbines or something at
Yeah,
a
Yeah,
power
they're
plant.
basically generators.
So like now it's just easy. They're just like just
Oh,
constantly
okay.
doing it all day.
yeah.
Nice.
And so
Yeah,
for
it's
him,
like it's
all he
progressed.
needed was that just enough energy to shoot that.
Yeah,
Directly
enough
at-
control back from Amon at a Noatok.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah, Noah
at
Tuck,
this point
basically.
we know who it is.
Right.
But even though like he still has the mask on right now, but a big moment here is where Korra gets her powers stripped by Amon.
Oh,
And
yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest moment, because I mean for me especially who's not seen it, I'm like, no, Korra, because she loses her connection to the three that she has basically mastered, which are the water, fire, earth, and it's a desperate
Now she's got
situation.
nothing.
Things seem
Yeah.
hopeless, and
Right.
I'm on the edge of my seat. And then to save Mako, she kind of pulls out and finally, like just kind of reaching out, just throws some air bending out finally. And she's up to
Yeah.
this point, she's not been able to do it, period. And that's something that they mentioned in the last episode, which is why I say that it led to this one very well, because I think it was Tarlok who reminded her that she has not been able to do airbending as of yet.
Right.
And so we see
Right.
her even crying over it because she doesn't understand why she can't. And so this was a huge moment, not only in that she got the rest of her power strip, but also that she finally was able to use airbending.
Yeah.
Because Amon
like-
took her from that, for some reason that like flipped the switch the opposite way.
Right.
And so
Right,
in
exactly.
a moment of desperation to save the person that she loved, she was able to unlock that, which I think there's a lot of like deeper meaning there with like love and how that can really help a person out in different ways. It's hugely powerful because it's like, what is she going to do to save the guy she loves the most
Yeah.
from losing his firebending?
Even versus the bloodbending, which for us at this time seems basically unbeatable. She's able to
Right.
muster up enough of this power to push Amon out of one of the windows and knock him into the lake there, which is where the reveal happens to everyone else that
There's
Amon.
a huge crowd outside.
Yeah, all of
because
his
of everything that's
followers.
happening.
Right, his followers are there. Everyone, they see, the mask comes off, and the scars that we see previously was just painted on, and that washes off. And then we
Right.
see him rise up from the water, since he is a waterbender, and
He has
that's
this
when
whirlpool underneath him.
exactly, and that's
Yeah.
when everybody like loses their faith in him, and understandably so, because he's been lying to them this whole time.
Right.
Yeah, and he looks kind of like Tarlok, so it's very obvious right there. Yes, he is Tarlok's brother.
Right.
And then his next move is to, like, he's lost all of his power because his followers have turned on him. So he flees to where he actually had captured his brother at some point and was keeping him prisoner because they think his brother was. I mean, those two were kind of turning on each other. So he's
Right.
got Tarlok.
They had two different
jailed up.
ideas. What we don't see is
Yeah.
in another episode, like
Yeah.
Tarlok, this tells Korra what his past life was with his dad, who his dad was, which you see in flashbacks from Aang, who he was dealing with as, the ultimate bloodbender. And,
Yes.
and you find out that his dad wanted revenge on Avatar and Republic City. And so Tarlok and Noatok kind of were going about it in different ways.
hmm
And
Right.
so Amon's like, well, you know what? This is all over. Me and you, brother, we can finally be
Right.
together after
But
all these years.
Even at that point, you could see, and I could tell that Tarlok had possibly had a change of heart from what was previously happening, because he seemed very unsure about going with Noatok at all.
right.
And
But
we
he
see
did.
that really come to a point,
Oh,
I
man.
guess. And this is one of those things
Yeah.
where I'm like, oh my, like, I'm surprised they showed this, but I see how they kind of pulled away from it to make it seem like everything might be okay, but we know
Right.
it's not okay.
Yeah,
He,
definitely not.
Tarlok gets one of those Equalist gloves, which shoots electricity. Basically, it's
Right.
a non-bender's way to have some sort of power. And they're on a boat getting away. Noatok has his back turned to him. He's just
Right.
exclaiming about like how things are going to be fine.
Right.
Like we're
A
going to
new
start new lives, a
beginning
new
and-
beginning, just like old times.
Right.
And then you see Tarlak look at this glove, and I'm like, oh man, no way. Like, at first I thought like he's just gonna like shoot him in the back or something,
Right,
but then he pulls open the gas tank, and I'm like, oh no way. And he shoots it
And he's
right
telling
in
his
there.
brother, yes, everything's going to be cool.
Yeah,
or
as he's
whatever.
telling his brother that everything's going to be just like old times or just be fine. And then both of them, in a
Wide
distance,
shot,
from the distance, wide shot, you see
Just a boom.
the explosion of that boat. It's like,
Crazy.
so he sacrificed himself in order to stop. I think it's in a way feeling regret about some of the things he had done previously.
Right.
And
Yeah, it was
definitely
like it was redemption.
Right, exactly. That was his
Basically.
redeeming moment because he also saved the world from any future potential tyranny by his brother. So I thought that was
Yeah.
a beautiful moment, actually, and very surprising. I didn't see it coming.
It's a dark
Yeah.
and very mature moment,
Yeah.
especially for a kid's show. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
dang.
Oh yeah, kills himself and his brother for the greater good. It's
Right.
insane,
That was
man.
that was a very cool moment, and I had to. I mean, spoilers because if you listen to this show, you know there's going to be
Yeah.
spoilers. But I had
we
to bring it
spoil
up.
all the time.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then we were treated to another like super awesome defining moment for Korra, in that she's lamenting kind of off by herself on this cliff because she now has airbending, but she lost the rest of her powers. So she's like, I can't be the Avatar. Like, I'm not the Avatar anymore.
Yeah, she goes back to Katara. Katara's trying to heal her, and it's like,
Yeah,
nothing
it doesn't
working.
work.
It's
Mm.
she's
So-
like this forever.
Right, all hope seems
Yeah.
lost at this point, and
Right.
I assume at this point that she's going to get it back, but I don't know. So I'm just like, well, I wonder, like, what's she going to do? Like, how is this season going to end? And so we see her go off. Mako comes up to her, and he's just like, none of this matters to me. Like, I want to stay with you because she's trying to basically tell him, like, go. Like, I have nothing to offer
Yeah.
anymore. Go. And so he confesses his love to her. And she can't even accept that. She does not feel deserving of that or anything right now. She's at her lowest point and goes off to be by herself. And that's when we see a figure dressed like Tenzin walk up. We think it's him, and so does she. And then we see who it's actually Aang, or a vision
which
of.
was so cool. That was such a great moment.
Oh man, yeah.
And it's basically like, it's kind of like everything hits like that point where she was broken to her lowest, and then like we said, when her other powers were taken away, it unlocked airbending, but apparently it also unlocked that spiritual part that she was missing.
Right.
And for the first time, she was able to speak with the shade of Aang, just like Aang was always speaking to like Roku and some of the other former avatars. And he basically was just kind of like, you are the Avatar, you can do this kind of thing. And unlocking that spiritual side, she goes into the Avatar state, which she had never done before. And all of a sudden, she has everything. She's got the spiritual, she's got fire, earth, water, air, all together. So it was a huge moment. I mean, the biggest moment she could have there.
I mean, like, I thought it was going to end where she's the whole season. I'm waiting for her to become Avatar. There's plenty of times she could have became Avatar, but it never happened.
Mhm.
And at this point in time, I love this season now, but prior I was like, man, this is nothing like The Last Airbender, where Aang would, Deus Ex Machina it completely and become the Avatar and like win out over everything else.
That's what I thought it was going to end on, a sad note too, with her just like, you've got air now, but here's a cliffhanger is you have nothing else. And I thought that was how I was going to end it.
Me too.
Because they really pull it out from they pull the rug out from under you there, because you don't know exactly what's about to happen until you
don't
see
expect it.
Right, you don't expect it at all. You see Aang come in, and like Chris was explaining, this is her turning point, and this is what basically unlocks everything. And so it makes what Amon did at the time, just cancels that out. She's got everything back, and it ends on a very happy note, and also with her confessing her love back to Mako.
So interesting fan theory I read after this, because when Aang said that, I was like, yeah, she reached her lowest point, but did she really? And I was reading this fan theory they said when she looked over the cliff and that teardrop, it was her wanting to commit suicide, but she couldn't do it.
Oh.
And that was her defining moment, was she was ready to die and be done with being everything. Being alive, being the
I could
Avatar.
kind of see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it seemed like, because
because
Can you imagine like being born with all that power and then having it stripped away from you from what you know forever?
Right. Yeah.
And now you think about it, like, yeah, she's sitting on the edge of a cliff, like her legs dangling like over the edge, and she doesn't have water bending or anything like that anymore. Like, she could easily die. So yeah, that makes
that's a sad fan theory, but I mean, it makes sense.
I think it brings a lot to her character, like what she was willing to do for the situation she was in. Is super strong, and powerful.
It's a sign of strength that she was able to stop herself at the last minute. So
And also, like, unlocking that spiritual side now that she was able to tap into the avatar state helps her be able to return bending back to those that had it taken away by Amon.
Oh yeah.
So like we see Lin Beifong, and Korra, basically touches her forehead and does the reverse of Amon and gives her bending back. What's kind of funny is because like then she like stands up and like raises these giant pillars of like earth out of the ground. And if you watch like Bolin's face, his mouth is like wide open, his eyes are huge, like whoa.
Oh yeah.
That's so good.
Even Naga's tail was wagging at that time too.
What's the name of Bolin's ferret? I don't remember. It's a fire ferret.
Yeah, I don't know that much. I don't remember its name. I just remember calling it a fire ferret.
But so Joseph, you probably didn't see this, but they do like a Mako and Bolin were part of like I don't remember what the sport is called, but they were on a sports team that Korra joined them for a while, and their team name was the Fire Ferrets.
Right. It's a huge part of the season, but
okay.
I don't think it was big enough for these.
I think they mentioned it once, but I didn't have the context.
Yeah, we didn't see it in the episodes we watched, but there's a couple episodes like devoted to like that sport, or not devoted to it, but it's a huge part of some of the episodes. And it's actually pretty entertaining too. So
nice.
Yeah, the Fire Ferrets.
Well, Chris and Austin, it looks like it's about time we bring out our inner kids by getting in touch with the spiritual side of bending and see what they thought of The Legend of Korra.
Aw, man, this cartoon was awesome. I love Airbender, and this one's just as good. I mean, you got the Avatar, and now she's this hot chick that can beat everybody up. Thank you, cartoon gods, for bestowing this blessing upon us. I rated this show 5 bowls of Fire Ferret cereal out of 5. And now I'm going to go airbend by farts.
Even only having had a small taste of what The Legend of Korra had to offer, I wouldn't have thought that I would get as attached to the characters that I ended up being. They're all very well developed, each with their own unique personality, and the villains are presented as an interesting shade of gray. And to accompany this spectacular character development, there are amazing action scenes tied to the intriguing Avatar lore. All in all, I would give The Legend of Korra 5 big bowls of big polar bear dog cereal out of 5, and I highly recommend you check it out, especially after watching The Last Airbender. But I think I'm going to see if I can do a little milk bending and pour myself another bowl. Bye!
Legend of Korra is the best. Lots of action with fire and water. I wish I could live in Avatar world. Korra is a strong person, and Amon is the worst villain in cartoons. He cheats with his dang bloodbending. This is one of the best shows ever. It's no Avatar without Aang, but it's still really, really, really good. I give it 5 fire punches, an air kick, a water slice, and an earth-bending high 5 out of 5.
Good job, kids.
Sadly, my link to the milk element was severed by Amon, and I've had to do it by hand ever since. Such a hassle.
So do you guys have any final thoughts about The Legend of Korra?
Everybody should watch it.
Yeah, basically, final thoughts. I need to watch The Last Airbender before I watch this to understand more of what's going on within the families themselves. But I think even as a standalone, you could check it out, and I don't think you'd be disappointed. So it's a great accompaniment to the first one, but not completely necessary to have watched it. So all in all, great show.
Yeah, I agree. This is and I mean, if you are a fan of Last Airbender, this is such a great place to pick up this universe and get back into it. It still has that same like magical feeling with the same kind of comedy and drama, but with new characters and a new story. And just like The Last Airbender, there's just so much depth and like history to this world. It just feels so vast and so bigger than like the world feels bigger than the shows that it's a part of. And I just absolutely love that. So it's definitely a must watch.
So I don't want to leave anyone on a bad note, but note that I think this season out of The Legend of Korra was the best because it actually had Brian and Michael directing and writing it, while the other ones, they kind of falter a little bit throughout, each season. But Brian and Michael do come back and write and direct a few of the shows. And when you watch those episodes, like, you know, it's them. You can feel
They're
it.
noticeably different.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they
Okay.
have this palpable, you know, you just know. It has
Okay.
that same feeling of Avatar.
There's a character that they introduced, I think, in season 2 that I absolutely love. He's I don't remember his name, but he's a very like Howard Hughes sort of character, and he's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, you have to watch it because that character is amazing. So yeah, please watch. Please.
Well, Austin, thanks for bringing this to us. This was awesome for me to watch for the first time, and I'm definitely going to try to watch the whole show now.
Yeah. I'm glad you liked it. It's one of the greatest American cartoon series ever. Is that too bold?
Agreed.
I think I could
No,
agree to
not
that.
at all.
I'm going to put
Also,
it right
I
up there
agree
for me
100%.
with Voltron, the new Voltron, which I thought was amazing. So
Which
this
is made
was
by the same guys.
made by the same guys. Yeah,
I
so
just found that out.
These guys are
Same guys.
killing it.
Killing
Yes.
Yep.
Killing it.
So where can people find you, Austin, or find the Inner Gamer?
So if you go to our website that we just launched, www.theinnergamer.net, we're also going to be launching our blog on the 2nd of January. So go check that out. We're also on iTunes and SoundCloud. Just search for The Inner Gamer and follow us on our social media.
Sweet.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, we got it.
Definitely check them out. David and I from Nerd Sloth were actually on one of your episodes.
Yeah.
I don't remember the number, but I feel like it was a long time ago.
Either.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit, but just go back as a reason to go check out. You're going to hear Joseph and all his greatness.
As if you're not tired of hearing me enough
Yeah,
on
if
this
you're not tired of
show.
Joseph's voice already, you will be.
He has a
You will
beautiful
be.
voice, guys. Come on.
It is.
Come on.
Right.
Well, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Silky smooth.
well, listeners, it looks like our milk supply is now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. Next week, we'll be watching
Pokemon Indigo League, submitted via email by Thomas.
I never know what's coming up, so that's a surprise to me. Again, thank you, Austin, for being here. And once again, I am Joseph,
I'm Chris.
And I'm Austin.
and we'll see you next Saturday.
Presented by Nerd Sloth.
A place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.